Take 22, with your will and in the name of all. Hello everyone, my name is John, and this is some of my story of my journey in divine will. I have a stammer, so excuse me if this talk doesn't flow as I would like. My camera person has told me to smile or else I could lose my audience. As a little introduction to this testimony, I will give a brief background to my story. I would say most of us discovered and grew in our faith by experiencing difficulties in life that we couldn't handle. In my case, it was depression from childhood, coupled with a severe stammer. I spent a lot of my early and adult years struggling with despair, loneliness, and trying to cope with not being able to speak. I was 40 years old before I could say my name with any kind of fluency. On a visit to Medjugorje in the mid-80s, I experienced a conversion and discovered that I was loved by God, that prayer worked. And for many years, it was the only thing that kept me going. The depression and despair still remained, but now I had God on my side and I had hope. I was a regular visitor to Medjugorje for the following 26 years, and like many of you viewing this, had a number of experiences with Jesus and Mary. In one of those experiences in 2010, I was praying in the Adoration Chapel. In my mind, I saw Our Lady and myself as a small child of about 7 years of age. She took my right hand and led me down a busy street. We turned into a quiet side street and she led me into a school. We climbed up some stairs to an upper classroom. Our Lady then disappeared. I could see myself sitting in an old-fashioned desk near the front of the classroom. There was nobody else in the room and nothing on the desk. There was a door in front of me and I expected the teacher to come through it at any moment. The teacher never arrived. That scene stayed with me for the whole week in Medjugorje and for many months afterwards. I, however, had no idea what it meant. In a later encounter with Our Lady, also in Medjugorje, she gave me a reading from Job, chapter 8, verse 7, which says, "Your past will seem as nothing, so great will your future be." I felt this was connected in some way to the upper classroom experience. Around 2014, I started getting invites from various people to pray in the divine will. I thought that it was just another devotion and more or less dismissed it. One of my friends from Knock encouraged me to contact a lady called Frances Hogan, who was running divine will study classes in Selbridge, not too far from me. I rang Frances. She invited me to come along even though the classes had already commenced. So there I was, sitting in a packed room with others, while Frances read from the volumes. She had only started reading when I felt the presence of Our Lady in the room. In my spirit, Our Lady said this was the upper classroom experience from Medjugorje some 4 years earlier. The teacher had arrived and the study material was divine will. Our Lady gave me a grace that first evening of understanding the concept of divine will. It was like I somehow knew and understood what Frances was reading each evening. It was as if I had read it before. This grace was like a jigsaw of knowledge in my mind, and over the next 6 months, gradually it came together piece by piece. Previous to this, I knew nothing about divine will or Louisa. My journey had begun. To be excited is not a word I could ever claim to be part of my life, but the divine will excited me. It probably didn't show much on my deadpan exterior, but I was excited in here. Since then, everything in how I pray has changed. It has been and is the best ongoing experience of my life. I asked my wife to help me describe how divine will is now and where I was at. She said, divine will has enveloped your life from the moment you awake until you go to sleep, and sometimes in your sleep. I said, how do you know? And she replied, aren't I looking at you every day? It would be great to say my life is a bed of roses since, but this is far from the case. The deeper I go into the divine well, the more stripping of my human will it involves, and this can be a painful process at times, and it's mostly a hidden journey. This is true also for the depression from which I still struggle. I've since managed to control the stammer to some degree. In divine will, the depression can be a blessing if I choose every day to view it as such and use it to alleviate the sufferings of Jesus' mind, make reparation for all mankind, and glorify the Father. If I didn't do this and allowed it to rule my human will, perhaps I wouldn't be here right now. Praying the hours of the Passion daily has been a huge source of grace and strength for me. I also find studying the volumes through the Zoom classes being run on this website invaluable. I received a prompt from the Lord in Easter of 2020 to start the hours of the Passion clocks. And I have a few running at the moment, with more people joining all the time. Details are also available on this website. Jesus and Mary give me little inspirations to write from time to time, explaining divine will and how to live more fully in it. These help me a lot, and also hopefully those who read them. Up to now I have been sharing them with the clock members. I asked the Lord for a word to sum up this little testimony, and instantly he gave me an image of a cuckoo in a nest. As soon as the cuckoo is hatched, it will push out any remaining eggs and other fledglings from the nest, so as to be the sole occupant. If I use the cuckoo image as divine will and the nest as my life, all the eggs which symbolize my attachments must go. Only the divine will is to remain. Thank you for listening, and I hope I haven't bored you. God bless.